This episode of Market Foolery is brought to you by Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans. Rocket Mortgage brings the mortgage process into the 21st century with a fast, easy, and completely online process. Check out Rocket Mortgage today at quickenloans.com/fool. It's Monday, July 25th. Welcome to Market Foolery. I'm Chris Hill. Joining me in studio today from $1 Million Portfolio, Jason Moser. And back from his wedding, from Stock Advisor Canada, Taylor Markham. Welcome back.
Hey.
We got the usual Monday band back together.
Back in the saddle, right?
Exactly. We're good.
It feels warm. It's like somebody's been keeping it for me.
Yeah, exactly. What do you think we're going to replace you?
Well, we were talking about him throughout his absence, right? I mean, it was good stuff. Obviously, you listened, I'm sure, but
yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm sure that's what he was doing on his honeymoon.
Hey, wait a minute, dear. Let me just catch this episode real quick.
The tips episode where you guys gave me some wedding day tips.
Excellent.
Any knife fights break out at your wedding?
No, absolutely not.
Okay. All right. We'll get to more details on the wedding in a bit. We got to start with what the news fairy brought this morning, and that is Verizon buying Yahoo for $4.8 billion. Keep in mind, this does not include Yahoo Japan. This does not include the stake in Alibaba. A lot of things to get worked out here. One thing we do know that was confirmed by one spokesperson was that the Yahoo Sports and Yahoo Finance entities will remain as standalones, sort of, so any thought that Verizon was going to do some massive overhaul in terms of branding, at least in the moment, appears like that's not going to take place. But what do you think?
Well, I'll actually kick this out there and encourage Verizon to maybe take Yahoo Finance back to its old look. I think Yahoo Finance had a little bit of a makeover here recently, and I got to say, I don't like it, Chris. I don't like it at all. It's
they weren't spending their money.
I'm not really sure what the priorities there, and everybody's got an opinion, and you know what they say about those, but I feel like the Yahoo Finance page was better before than it is now. I think, though, in regard to the deal, I mean, this is news that we knew was coming. I mean, in some capacity, it was a matter of who, and that it's Verizon isn't really a surprise. I think the biggest question for Yahoo remains, and this is now going to be Verizon's responsibility, is what is it? What problem does it actually solve? And I think that when we saw Marissa Mayer take over the business back in 2012, I think it was, we were pretty consistent in saying that we would judge her success based on her ability to grow the top line, just organic revenue, sans acquisitions. Show us how you're going to take this business forward, because the competitive landscape had certainly changed in the recent past. And if you look at their income statement, their top line had just not gone anywhere. So I think that says it all. I mean, I don't think that anyone could have really gone in there and taken this business in any other sort of a direction, because I think the writing was almost already on the wall with sort of the new social generation and where most eyeballs are going. Now, with that said, I mean, you made some good points there in regard to Yahoo Finance, Yahoo Sports. There are some valuable properties there that do garner a lot of eyeballs every month, along with AOL, oddly enough. And so I think Verizon has some interesting properties there with which to work. But, I mean, like you said, this deal doesn't include Yahoo Japan. It does not include their stake in Alibaba. This is one piece of sort of the overall plan to unlock value for shareholders in whatever capacity they can, while hopefully minimizing any tax exposure. And so there's some big questions there to be answered in regard to Yahoo Japan and Alibaba. I think as it stands, though, I mean, this is probably the best case scenario. But with that said, I wouldn't be terribly surprised here within the next 2 years you see Verizon start writing down some goodwill off this acquisition. I mean, close to $5 billion. It's a pretty big chunk of change, and I'm not sure really that Yahoo, when I look forward these coming 10 years, I don't put Yahoo up there as one of sort of the top web properties where consumers, where people, where younger folks are starting to go.
Well, and just in December, a writer from Bloomberg did the deep dive into the core business of Yahoo and valued it at $1.7 billion. So
yeah,
right there.
And there was a pretty damning Bloomberg cover, I mean, not all that long ago, that sort of took on this issue as well. So again, I mean, I think for Yahoo shareholders, this is a good deal. I mean, you take this and you run. Still questions to be answered there as far as the remaining assets of the business, but big test for Verizon now. I'd be very interested to see what they plan on doing with it.
Yeah, I think that from time to time you'll hear something about like, well, this era is now over, but I think in this case, I don't think it's an overstatement to say that the era of Yahoo as we know it is over, in the sense that most people's interactions, certainly here in the States, with Yahoo has to do with using various properties, whether it's sports, finance, whatever. And by the way, we've worked with Yahoo Finance for a long time. But I agree with you. Like when they changed it, because I use Yahoo Finance all the time.
I used to,
and when they switched over the interface and sort of the way they do charts and that kind of thing, I was like, no. So anyway, interesting though that this is one of those situations where from time to time we'll talk about the smart money. The smart money through this whole process was on Verizon, and this turned out to be one of those situations where the smart money was right. That I think to the extent that anyone was going to extract value from this, even if they're whether they overpaid for it or not, and if you look at Verizon stock down maybe 0.5%, at least the reaction in the market is not that they wrote a way too large check.
No, I think this is actually a pretty reasonable check, particularly when you consider the size of Verizon's network. I mean, that's really the attractive proposition here for them, is they have this tremendous network that's going to allow these web properties, if there's any success at all, I mean, this is the best chance to scale them. Because, I mean, you're looking at really one of the largest, if not the largest, mobile networks in the world, not to mention the connection they have in many people's homes. But, I mean, this is certainly going to play into their mobile strength and give them a chance to at least get this content, get these properties out there in front of as many eyeballs as possible, and help monetize really one of the strengths of the platform and its advertising.
Well, you look at Yahoo claiming 600 million monthly active mobile users.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there you get an instant shot in the arm. I'm sure there's some overlap, but you can't imagine it's more than 50%.
And I mean, I think that's the power of habit too. I mean, I on my phone, I've got the Yahoo Weather app and the Yahoo Finance app, and I use them both. I don't rely on them both all the time. I mean, I can ask my Amazon Echo what the weather's going to be like too, but out of habit, I find myself clicking one or two of those apps each day just to get some information. So again, I think there is some power of habit there that they can continue to kind of rely on, as long as they keep those properties relevant, fresh, and with information that people actually value. You
mentioned that in terms of Yahoo shareholders, this was probably a good deal. Worth noting that back in 2008, Microsoft offered $45 billion for Yahoo.
And that was before Alibaba blew up.
Yes, and Yahoo turned that down.
So that's amazing.
Late last week, Boston Beer reported second quarter results. Revenue down 3%. The market share is declining for the third quarter in a row. They cut guidance for the full fiscal year, and yet shares of Boston Beer up 10%. Tell me where the optimism is coming from. Where's the excitement? Why is there excitement?
From Fortune.com, they had the first paragraph of an article I read said that they blew the cap off analyst expectations.
How low were expectations?
I mean, expectations were pretty low, Chris, but let me just say right here and right now, I promise I'm going to go buy a 6-pack of Samuel Adams beer, and I'm going to get to the bottom of this, and I will circle back with you both and give you my answer.
Exactly.
Potentially into the next day.
Given the heat wave we're having in the greater D.C. area, I would expect no less. No, seriously, was this simply a function of expectations?
So I think there are a couple things. So this from our perspective, we hold Boston Beer in $1 million portfolio. It's a company that we bought. We were very patient with this one, bought it somewhere in the neighborhood of $162. So we felt like we were very patient, got a great price for it, for a business that is certainly facing a lot of challenges right now. And I think expectations were I think the expectation was that they were going to come into this with this release and guide down even further than the guidance that they had revised the previous quarter. And the fact that they did revise guidance slightly. Essentially what they did is they revised the depletions guidance a little bit to where it basically eliminated any positive side, but it didn't go any deeper into the red. And with earnings, they reduced the range slightly. And so I think from that perspective, it was probably a win, because I mean, the story quarter in and quarter out is the craft brew segment is so competitive right now, and Boston beer, for all of its past success, is really in sort of a new paradigm now where craft beer has become very local, and depending on where you are is going to kind of dictate what you're drinking. I think that with Boston beer, though, I mean, let's understand what got them to this point, the success that they're having, and I think that they're doing a smart thing in sort of diversifying their portfolio as a smart investor might, instead of relying on one particular product or beer like Samuel Adams. I mean, again, we talk about Alchemy and Science and the different brands that it brings under that portfolio, establishing new types of beverages like ciders, like sodas, hard seltzers now is a new line. And so they're utilizing
hard seltzers.
Yeah, I know, it's weird. I haven't ever tried one, but it's something that's been introduced. It's a thing. It's a thing. But what I've found in researching more and more of sort of these different sort of niche beverages is that they're really pursuing a whole new demographic of drinker. I mean, I think that generally speaking, when you think of craft beer, you probably have a picture of just sort of a younger millennial style individual who's ready to go out there and try all sorts of different flavors of whatever, IPAs are out there.
And pay a little bit more.
Possibly, yeah. Pay a little bit more. And I think we're even seeing now where we're reaching a point where they're starting to lose some of that pricing power. But Boston beer, by the efforts of things like Concrete Beach Brewery and Angel City and all of those other styles of beverages that they're introducing to their portfolio, they're pursuing various demographics, whether they be Latino or Asian or African American. They're recognizing the fact that there's a larger swath of drinker out there than just sort of this stereotypical craft beer drinker. And so I think these are investments they're making today that will pay off down the road. I think there is only so far that this sort of craft beer stage can go until it becomes so saturated that it's going to have to start weeding out some of the smaller players. I think that as the cost of business goes up, we'll see more and more of that. And I think that you see, if you go to the grocery store and you look on the shelves, you see a lot of IPAs out there. I think IPAs have been a very popular beer over the past couple of years. They're starting to lose a little bit of their shine, and you're seeing some brewers going into some different styles like Goes or whatever else. And so I think that that's one advantage that Boston Beer has, is the ability to sort of pursue those different styles of beverages. And they talked a little bit about acquisitions. They're interested in that, but by the same token, they notice that in a lot of these areas that the multiples are extremely high, and that makes a lot of sense. These markets have a lot of optimism in them, and the multiples are going to be pretty high. And so they have the opportunity to pursue that down the road. But I think for now, it's focusing on sort of rebranding a little bit. They've got a new chief marketing officer coming in and figuring out what people actually want to drink, and then just making sure that they get those styles of beverages out there for them.
They're going to spend more money on marketing and ad promotions and everything like that.
They are.
It'll be interesting to see, though, because the John Potter, I think his name was.
Yeah, Potter, I believe.
Coming from Diageo and Moet Hennessy, so not a beer marketer, but still.
Yeah, I think he had
the biggest alcohol distributors in the world. So
yep.
Pretty interesting. I don't know too much about Boston Beer in terms of their growth, but has acquisitions ever been a strategy that they've pursued?
Not typically. I mean, they've acquired physical breweries in order to expand their capacity. I think the Alchemy and Science wing, which started out as a very sort of incubator-like style of wing of the business, has grown to become a more significant portion of revenues as time has gone on, and that's been the idea. And so the hope is that they will be able to recognize some perhaps good acquisitions to continue to bring into that model. But I think they were very clear on the call that they're going to be particular. They're not going to go in there and just overpay in the face of what some might view as a frothy craft beer market, so to speak.
I'm still trying to wrap my head around the seltzer water with alcohol in it.
Yeah,
because seltzer water is just carbonated water.
Sure.
So
with 5% alcohol.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean,
it's a thing. I can't say I've tried it. I can't say I will. But apparently there are people out there that like it and drink it, and hey, hats off to them.
All right, before we move on, got to say a word about Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans. If you bought a house, or you're looking to buy a house or refinance your mortgage, then it's worth checking out Rocket Mortgage, because It takes all of that complicated, time-consuming stuff that goes into applying for a mortgage right out of the equation. You can share your bank statements and pay stubs at the touch of a button. Rocket Mortgage will help you get approved in minutes for a custom mortgage solution that's been tailored to your own financial situation. And the best part is you can just do it all on your phone or tablet. So if you're looking to refinance or you're looking to buy a home, check out Rocket Mortgage today. QuickenLoans.com/fool, equal housing lender, licensed in all 50 states, NMLS, consumeraccess.org, number 3030. Before we wrap up, let's share a little bit about where we've been and what we've been doing. I mean, we've been talking about your wedding.
Yeah.
I think at least a couple of our listeners were concerned that, where's Taylor? Is Taylor coming back? No one suggested this, but, anytime I hear about this couple got married and they went away on a cruise and then one of them fell overboard and it's
never saw him
exactly.
again.
Well, I didn't fall overboard. So there's still one of us out there.
Yeah, exactly. One or two highlights from the wedding. There was no knife fight.
There were no knife fights, so I can't report back on that.
Okay.
But, I don't know. It was the most incredible weekend of my life. Yeah.
You had a great time. Great party.
Great party.
Family and friends.
Saw the sunrise the night of the wedding. So
You got married in Portugal, right?
Yeah. So 6:30, the lights came on for us.
Is there any sort of traditional thing that happens at a wedding in Portugal that wouldn't happen at the typical American wedding?
We had second dinner at 2:30 in the morning. Sandwiches, soup.
Second dinner.
Yeah,
What time? Wait,
Is that like the fourth meal that Taco Bell's always trying to
Exactly.
sell? Hit him with the hind.
When's the first dinner? Like 7, 8?
Well, the first dinner started at 8 o'clock. So
And then drinks, dancing,
dance till 2, and then second dinner.
sit down for second dinner.
Well, it was all just like stations, so no one was really sitting down at a table, but people were definitely sitting down because soup on the dance floor could get a little.
Yeah,
messy.
no, nobody wants that. Nobody wants that. You were golfing last week?
Well, yeah, I did. I took an impromptu sort of trip. I had a buddy of mine from Kazakhstan. He works with ExxonMobil. He's not from Kazakhstan, but I met him out there at the time we were all out there together. And he had some friends up in Connecticut. And so I took a very last-minute trip up to Connecticut because the golf course really warranted getting up there. The fact that I could get up there and play with my friends and play that golf course.
Fly right into Hartford?
You know what? I actually drove, believe it or not.
Wow.
Yeah. And I mean, from here, I woke up Friday morning or Thursday morning, left at 5 and got to Greenwich, Connecticut at 9:30. So,
Nice.
I mean, a 4.5-hour drive straight up. It was really nice. Kind of got to watch the sun come up myself there. But, I mean, the golf course itself was one. It's called the Stanwich Club, and it's up in Greenwich, and they've had some USGA events and some international team events and whatnot. Just a phenomenal golf course, kind of a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for me to get up there and play it, so I had to take advantage of it while I could.
What style course?
Well, it goes back to sort of the old Donald Ross style, greens wise.
I'm sorry, as the non-golfer in the room.
Well,
you're gonna
so
have to
basically,
help me out
let's
here.
if you visualize the green.
Because when he said what style course was it, I was going to interject. I think it was a golf course.
So if you're hitting into the green, and the green is like that big sort of flat area where you do all of your putting. Donald Ross is an old designer. He's long since passed away, but he's renowned for building sort of these what are known as sort of turtleback greens. And so they're greens that are like a turtleback and they slope off in every direction. It means it's very difficult to keep your ball on the green, and when you've got them on the green, they're still difficult to putt. And so this was that style of golf course that was just very difficult from tee to green, immaculately kept, very exclusive private place up there that I wouldn't have a chance to play otherwise. And so just a neat opportunity to get up there. And we talk about hot weather. I know you were up in Canada talking about the burning 80 degrees. I mean, I think we were at about 100 degrees that day we played, but you just didn't feel it because it was so much fun.
It was definitely warm in Canada for Canada, but relative to what we have going on this week, it was fine.
But what were you doing up there?
Went to Niagara Falls first.
Nice.
Flew into Buffalo, spent the night there, and then hit Niagara Falls. And I just gotta say, Niagara Falls, I'd never been before. It's totally worth it. It is totally worth the and I'm talking about the boat ride, like get on the Maid of the Mist and go out there, and you got the poncho on, like that experience. That's totally worth being in the town of Niagara Falls on the Canada side, which is it's, as I said to someone, it's like Las Vegas vomited on a small town, because it's just all of these, like, you go down this main strip and it's all of these haunted houses and candy shops and miniature golf and just all this just sort of tacky little town, but you've got this amazing physical, natural wonder at the end of it all. So that was great. Spent a couple of days in Toronto, went to Toronto Island, had never done that before. That was great, which is just, right across. You just hop on a water taxi or the ferry, and that was great.
Little area out there.
Yeah, it's
On it as well.
yeah, beautiful.
Get any
Absolutely
lobster?
Beautiful. What's that?
Get any lobster?
No.
What was the culinary delight?
The culinary, I was staying with my cousin, and she and her husband are both really good cooks, so they took care of that for us. When we were in Montreal, that was the rest of the time, and the canal. There's a canal in Montreal. You can rent bikes and bike along, and it's gorgeous, and again, great to be outside.
Yes.
But we went to the Little Italy section of Montreal and
Napoli.
ate at this phenomenal restaurant called Cornelli. But we were walking around afterwards just to walk off the meal, and I was just sort of joking, like, you know what? If this restaurant didn't work out, there's like 17. Like if they were full and they couldn't, seat us for an hour, we could have just, walked half a block and run into all these other restaurants. So exactly.
So as the resident Canadian fool here, what was your favorite, Toronto or Montreal?
They're both great. They're very different cities. Toronto feels much more like an American city. Montreal, you can go to. You've got those two areas of the downtown. One that is very modern, and the other that is very much like an old European city. That they don't. It's all walking in the streets and cobblestones and that sort of thing. So.
Doesn't one of them have a very strong underground presence, like not alternative music underground, but just like an actual underground presence where you can.
The subway, you mean?
Is that? Well, no. I guess I was thinking. I thought there was either Toronto or Montreal that had sort of like underground malls or something.
Oh, I think
Toronto has a couple of those, but nothing like Atlanta.
Okay.
Like that, though.
Right.
That I'm aware of.
But Montreal has a great subway system, super easy to figure out, even for people like me who don't speak French. So great family trip. Speaking of family trips, before we wrap up, back in June, I got an email from longtime listener Robin Rifkin in Seattle, and he wrote, "I'm dragging my family," and then in parentheses, "by car, because I'm stupid like that, to Jackson, Wyoming this week. I seem to recall a mention on the show about a whiskey sent to you from a listener in Wyoming. Maybe it was Montana. What was it? How was it? And do you recommend?" And I replied, it was Wyoming whiskey, and it's phenomenal. And then when I got back to the office today, I got a box with a handwritten note to Chris, Dan, Steve, et al., and all the regular Market Foolery guests, and especially Jason for sending me some Fool gear. Critical Wyoming loot in appreciation for your insightful and compelling analysis. Market Foolery is always first on my playlist. Signed, Robin Rifkin. So, and included a bottle of Wyoming whiskey and Bighorn bourbon whiskey from Willie's Distillery in Montana. So, thank you.
Yes.
Very much. Incredibly generous. Thank you for that.
Super thoughtful.
And we're going to have like a Market Foolery party that includes far more people than just the three of us and Dan Boyd, because
well, I think we probably need to go in and we need to do a Thirsty Thursday, and this needs to be just a part of. We can sponsor a Thirsty Thursday. We have an internal Thirsty Thursday here at work where a section of the business sort of sponsors a happy hour, and we could do ours, and part of it will be distribute.
One of our coworkers, who will remain nameless, suggested to me that maybe what we could do is use this for a Facebook Live video. just see what happens.
Hey, did you catch that earnings yesterday?
And that would be the end of us all.
Yes, it would.
All right, Jason Moser, Taylor Muckerman, thanks for being here, guys.
Thank you.
As always, people on the program may have interest in the stocks they talk about, and the Motley Fool may have formal recommendations for or against, so don't buy or sell stocks based solely on what you hear. That's going to do it for this edition of Market Foolery. The show is mixed by Dan Boyd. I'm Chris Hill. Thanks for listening. We'll see you tomorrow.